You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Hey everybody, I'm back from my summer vacation. A big thank you to Brian Safi and Aaron Gibson from the Throwing Shade podcast for filling in on the Top of the Show rant a few weeks ago, and to Anna Marie Cox from MTV News and the VMAs this weekend for also filling in with the Top of the Show rant. Really appreciate the reach around, guys. Really appreciate the help. And a big thank you, note of personal privilege, a big thank you to everyone in Austria who conspired to make my trip there, my summer vacation, so much fun. So thanks everybody in Graz, Vienna, and Monsi. And little travel tip for Americans who are thinking about going to Austria: Graz. It's a city you've never heard of in Austria because nothing, not a single frame of Sound of Music was filmed there. So you've never heard of it. Happens to be the second largest city in Austria, and it's great. And you should go, particularly if you've been to Salzburg and you want to get far, far away from all the Sound of Music fetishists. Get thee to Graz. Go. So I'm back, and I wanted to open the show this week. I wanted a top of the show rant that was all about Donald fucking Trump. I have some things to get off my chest, but I'm going to have to put off a Donald Trump rant for a week because of the news that's passing through the fan today as we sit down to record the top of the show about everyone's favorite disgraced and redisgraced and re-disgraced former Congress member Anthony Weiner, who was caught swapping texts again, or sex again, with a woman who is not his wife. The New York Post had the goods. It turns out for the last year and a half, Weiner was flirting and swapping sex with a woman in California, a woman who happens to be a Trump supporter, as it turns out. And she took all the lurid screenshots to the Murdoch-owned right-wing tabloid in New York, and they splashed it all over the cover. New York Post, exclusive daddy sexts while taking care of tot. With a great New York Post headline: hate the paper, right-wing scandal sheet, terrible paper run by terrible people. But you gotta give some props to the headline writer who came up with "Pop Goes the Wiener." Now, let me get this off before I say anything else, because believe it or not, I'm about to come to the defense of Anthony Weiner. Before I say anything else, Anthony Weiner clearly has a reckless, self-destructive compulsion. I feel bad for his wife, Huma Abedin, and for his kid, who is pictured on the cover of the New York Post with Anthony Weiner, because one of the texts that he sent to this woman in New York, who is a Trump supporter, who took these screen grabs and images and pictures and conversations to the New York Post, is him laying in bed with his sleeping toddler beside him. Quoting from the New York Post here: the stay-at-home cad, good one, New York Post, good one. The stay-at-home cad shot the revealing photo while discussing massage parlors near my old apartment shortly after 3 a.m. on July 31st, 2015, a screenshot of the exchange shows. Weiner was clearly aroused by his conversation with the 40-something divorcee when he abruptly changed the subject. Someone just climbed into my bed, Weiner wrote. Really? She responded. Weiner then hit send on the cringe-inducing image, which shows a bulge in his white jockey brand boxer briefs and his son cuddled up to his left, wrapped in a light green blanket. I'm cringing, as I'm sure you are. And now let me say this for the record: responsible parents, even extremely horny ones, do not include images of their children when sexting with strangers on the internet, or with anyone, on anything, anywhere. Ich, ugh, gross, yuck, blech. That said, making private sex messages public, do it to anyone else, anyone other than Anthony Weiner, and you are the asshole. Do it to Anthony Weiner, and he's the asshole. Why this double standard? Posting dirty pictures or videos that were shared with you privately or made with you privately without the consent of the person in those pictures or videos, there's a name for that. It's called revenge porn, and it's a crime in many, many states. It happens to be a crime in the state where Weiner's latest untrustworthy sext buddy resides, in California. It is a crime to disseminate or distribute or share or post images, videos, photos, sexts that were sent to you. It is a crime, and now I'm quoting from the statute, if the persons agree or understand that the image remain private, or the person distributing the image knows or should know that distribution of the image will cause serious emotional distress, and the person depicted suffers that distress. If so, you are guilty of disorderly conduct. Crime in California. Once again, let there be no mistake, I'm just going to keep repeating this. Sending out crotch shots with your kid in them? Deeply fucked up. Ick, ugh, gross, black, wrong, get help. But if it's wrong, if it's in fact criminal for someone to distribute private sex messages by putting them up on the internet, sending those same private sex messages to the New York fucking Post so they can put them on the internet and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram so they can do that for you, that's just as wrong and should be just as criminal. Yes, as people are screaming at me on Twitter this morning, Wiener should have learned his lesson by now. He should have known better. But if you think Wiener had it coming, because he should have known better, because he had to know he was a target by now, this is not his first trip to this particular rodeo, because he had to know his pictures would be widely shared if they got out yet again, then you must think that the victims of the fappening had it coming too. Remember the fappening? That was when a whole bunch of celebrities, female celebrities, had their private sex messages yanked off the cloud and thrown up on the internet. Every celeb out there whose nude photos have ever been leaked or stolen and widely shared had to know that trolls and tabloids and paparazzi are after them too, that they are targets, that their pics would be widely shared if they ever got out. So it just seems to me that if what was done to the lovely and talented Jennifer Lawrence was wrong, and it was, and if what was done to the lovely and hilarious Leslie Jones, and my heart goes out to Leslie Jones, if that was wrong, and it was, then what's been done to the skeezy and compulsive Anthony Weiner is just as wrong. He has done wrong. He has wronged his wife, Huma, who has now left him. They are separating. She has had enough. She has suffered enough. He has wronged her. He's wronged his kid. The New York Post has wronged this kid as well by putting that picture on the cover of the newspaper. That said, all of that acknowledged, Anthony Weiner has also been wronged here. And I think we would be able to see it more clearly if he wasn't so skeezy and compulsive, and if he didn't have a penis, frankly. We sometimes have a hard time recognizing when men are on the receiving end of abuse that women are much more likely to be targeted with, or abuse that women are much more likely to suffer and endure. Sexual harassment, rape, revenge porn, domestic violence. When it flows toward men, when men are on the receiving end of that, we sometimes have a hard time sympathizing. And maybe rightly so, because men usually dish that shit out. And maybe there's a bit of collective guilt they had it coming when a man is on the receiving end of that. Doesn't make for that individual man who's going through it, doesn't make it any less painful. It doesn't make, even in the case of Anthony Weiner, it doesn't make it any less wrong. All right, next week we'll rant about Donald Trump, I promise, and his bullshit outreach to African-American voters, which is almost identical to his bullshit outreach to LGBT voters. We'll talk about that at the top of the show next week. This week, we have selections from our recent live show in Chicago, and coming up on the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast, which you can subscribe to at www.savagelovecast.com. We have author and advice columnist Heather Havrilesky here to talk shop and talk about her new book. Coming right up, right after this. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by AdamandEve.com. Get 50% off almost any item, plus 3 free adult DVDs and free shipping. Just go to AdamandEve.com and enter Savage at checkout. Today's Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Me Undies. High quality, super comfortable, good looking undies. Get 20% off your first order when you go to meundies.com/savage. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Boll & Branch, luxury, affordable, fair trade certified sheets. Get $50 off a set of sheets plus free shipping by going to bollandbranch.com and entering Savage. Your questions, so many of them. Here we go. Sometimes I sneeze and my prostate feels like it's going to roll out of my ass. Is that normal? No, that is not. My relationship with my sexy bearded daddy is pretty much perfect. Any advice on student loan debt? Nope. There you go, Tracy, a one-word answer. How about that? Dan, I am in a newer relationship that is going really well, mostly. There have been a few small incidents in which my boyfriend has lied or condoned lying about small non-relationship issues, but still, do I let this concern my trust in him? Everybody lies. A relationship is a myth that two people create together, and myths are built of pleasing lies and little lies and white lies and big fucking lies to cover up massive betrayals that, if exposed, would destroy the relationship, which you may or may not want destroyed. So, yeah, if he's lying to you about little stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean he's lying to you about big stuff, but maybe he is, but maybe you want him to. What is your stand on ass play? Really? Here's a fun story, though, about ass play. 25 fucking years ago, when I started writing Savage Love for The Stranger in Seattle, I got some interest. I got a phone call from editors of other papers. The Village Voice called, thinking they might want to pick up the column, but they thought there was too much anal in it, and could I dial it back for New York? And I said no. And then they waited 5 more years to pick it up. And it was the same thing in Chicago. The Reader called me, the then editor of the Chicago Reader called me, and they were thinking about picking up the column, but there was just too much butt fucking in it. And I said, and there always will be butt fucking in it, because people have questions about butt fucking, and here I am, ready and willing and able to answer them. And then they came around, and 5 years later, my butt fucking column was in the Chicago Reader. How can I break my love affair with my vibrator? Why would you want to? If it works, it works. Now, there are some people who believe they've become dependent on vibrators, some women people, and some not women people, because not all women have vaginas, or all vaginas have women. Please don't glitter me. But some people require this tool in order to climax, and maybe you're one of those people. There's an easy way to figure out if you are one of those people, which is to stop using your vibrator for a while and see what happens. And if you stop using your vibrator for a while and you cannot climax, then pick up that tool and fucking use it. Most of the clitoral tissues are buried deep inside. The exposed glands, what people call the clitoris, which is only the tip of the clitoris or the head of the clitoris, is just a little bit of it. And most of it's inside. The erectile chambers, the shaft, is deep inside. And just as some men come just by jerking off basically the head of their dick, and they can come, some men have to stroke the whole shaft and play with the balls and touch the taint, which is the root of the dick, right? Some men, when they jack off, they're playing with all of it, and they need to do that to come. Well, there are some women who can come just by playing with the head, just by playing with the glands, the exposed part. There are some women who need to play with all of it, but it's all fucking inside. And the quickest way to play with that to stimulate the rest of the clitoral tissues for a lot of women, or the only way, or the only effective way, is a vibrator. And if you are one of those women, put a power strip next to your bed, lay in a bunch of vibrators, dump any guy who has a problem with it, and do what your pussy needs done to get off. So don't end your love affair with your vibrator. Just tell your next boyfriend that you're polyamorous. My husband gets super turned on by my nylons, even beige ones. What's that about? That's about super simple way to turn the husband on and reliable, and you should be very grateful that it's nylons and not shitting in your mouth or something horrible. That you have this switch on him that you can flip at pretty much at will. When you want dick, you just have to go pull on a pair of nylons. That is a superpower. And what's up with that? Who the fuck knows? Nobody knows. Read Perv by Jesse Baring, who's been a frequent guest expert in Savage Love and on the Lovecast. They don't really know where kinks come from, but they think it's tied to our capacity for abstract thought, tied to speech, that it's often experiences early in life, random. People just, their erotic imagination snaps onto something, and kids are exposed to something pre-puberty, well pre-puberty, and it just clicks. and snaps into place, and there's no controlling it or controlling for it. So, could be worse, right? He could have snapped on something. He could have been watching Dexter when he was 4 and snapped on that. And you're like, oh, really? I got to get saran wrap to a table again? Cis female, I am attracted to both males and females, but I feel yucky about the bisexual label. I was told I could use queer to self-identify, but I thought that was reserved for genderqueer. Help! Well, go to college and you will discover that queer is not just for genderqueer, never was just for genderqueer. Queer means not straight. Queer is genus. Gay, in my case, is species. Homo sapien, genus, species, right? So you are queer, bi. Queer is the umbrella term that unites all of us who are not breeders, not straight people. Breeders, heterosexuals, that's our hate term for you. But it's really not a hate term, although some straight people react to it that way. I don't have any children, don't call me a breeder. Well, it's still a piano if no one's fucking playing it. My completely amazing partner always milks 2 or 3 loads out of me before she locks me in chastity. How much semen can an average guy make in one sitting if he really tries? It all depends. See, this is one of those questions you get when you write a sex advice column, where it's really not a question, it's a brag. And that's awesome that you guys have this amazing sex life and you've incorporated chastity play into your deal and you're both really enjoying it and it's really fun, but you don't really have a question. A guy can make as much semen as that guy can make. So you know how much semen the most important guy, the only relevant guy to your situation can make, and that's you. So how much semen can you make? You and your girlfriend can find that out. Eventually, guys can have what's called a dry orgasm, where they feel all those orgasmic sensations, but nothing is they're little puffs of air coming out of their dick. So 2 or 3, maybe 4 is the charm. Maybe 4 will be your dry puff of air orgasm. Is it bad for me, 30, almost 31, to sleep with a 22-year-old? Before I say yes, yes, it is bad for you to sleep with a 22-year-old because I want them all for myself. Before you say yes, I feel like he is too sweet and innocent, and I would be taking advantage. We work together, and he is so hot. I can show you a picture on my phone. All right. I can only make... Where are you? Well, you should definitely fuck some sense into him so he takes that nose ring out. But those are lovely blue eyes. He needs to get rid of the little, rat face mustache. You're the older, wiser person who's going to tell him to shave and to take the nose ring out. And so, yeah, you should definitely fuck him, because somebody's got to lower the boom on some of his fashion and personal grooming choices. And it's always better to hear, shave the little rat face mustache off and lose the nose ring from someone who's blowing you. So yeah, definitely fuck that dude. And follow the campsite rule. I'm a bottom, my boyfriend is as well. I've been topping him for 5 months now, gay dudes. How do I get him to top me once in a while? Use your words. Tell him you would like some dick in you and not just be the dick in him. And then you can have a conversation about whether he can top you. Some folks are bottoms only, and they really can't top. Some gay folks are bottoms only and really can't top when it comes to anal. And maybe he's one of those folks, in which case you invest in a suite of double-ended dildos. You put it on your registry when it's wedding time. My boyfriend typically lasts only 3 to 5 minutes in bed. How do I encourage him to make it last longer without hurting his feelings? I don't know where Nancy is right now. There you are. But this would qualify as one of those questions that we are constantly talking about. We only get these questions from women, and only usually women with male partners, not all of them straight, of course, not all of their male partners straight, but usually only women with male partners who are gaming out How do I tell my partner something that he needs to know, something that is important, something that will improve our sex life or result in me not being in pain when we're having sex? How do I roll all this out while prioritizing his feelings over mine and over my safety and over my pleasure? And my answer is like, fucking tell him. And if he has a little like baby ass meltdown about it, fucking break up with him. Unless you can't. You tell him that 3 to 5 minutes isn't enough for me. It doesn't get me off. So we're going to incorporate toys, or you're going to fuck me till you come, and then we're going to roll around some more until you can get hard again, and then you're going to fuck me some more because I require more fucking than 3 to 5 minutes. And if you don't want to start having 3 and 4 ways with other dudes, we're going to find other workarounds for what might be for him like a hard physical limit that he doesn't have to be ashamed of. He's nothing to be ashamed of. If 3 to 5 minutes of fucking is all he can do and good for him and the way his dick works, just like if you require a vibrator to come because that's the way your pussy works, that's the way your pussy works. If that's the way his dick works, that's the way his dick works. And after he comes, if he gets soft, how hard are his fingers? How hard is his forearm? How hard is his tongue? That there are other things that you can do and do before. Like you can come and come and come and come, and then you can just throw the dick in when you're ready for 3 to 5 minutes more of this shit. But you have to be willing to communicate with him about it. You have to just disinhibit in your communication with him about it and not worry about his precious ego. And I know women are socialized to defer to men. Women are socialized to prioritize his feelings over, often we get so many calls, over their own physical comfort and safety. We have calls from women who are hurting. He likes to play with my ass and finger fucks me, and he does it so hard and it hurts, or he doesn't trim his fingernails. How do I ask him to cut his fingernails without making him feel bad about all the times he's already hurt me? That's just an indictment of our culture and the way we raise girls and the damage done by putting men first. So just fucking tell them 5 minutes ain't cutting it. Just like us here at the Lovecast, Adam and Eve want you to have a fun, healthy sex life, and they are very set up to help you get there. They are now offering 50% off almost any item. Choose a new adult toy, lube, or almost anything from over 18,000 adult products. Plus, Adam and Eve will let you pick 3 free adult DVDs with your order. Choose from all kinds of genres for both gay and straight folks. And you'll receive a free mystery gift. What could it be? And free shipping. That's adamandeve.com and enter SAVAGE at checkout. Is any school in America teaching sex ed that includes discussions about pleasure? No. If not, how do we do this? Get on school boards? Is there a progressive ALEC where we can get pre-written proposals? You know, this is one of those cases where the right-wing haters want it more. I don't think we're ever going to really have decent, comprehensive, queer-inclusive, pleasure-inclusive, gender-smart sex ed in our schools, which is a shame because we fucking need it. On the other hand, it is job protection for me. So maybe I have a bias or a conflict here and I can't really give good advice. The problem with leaving pleasure out of discussions in sex ed and consent and so much else is that you will have young people come to partnered sex and it isn't pleasurable or it's physically painful, and they don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that because pleasure wasn't discussed, because they didn't think sex was supposed to feel good for them, particularly for girls, for young women. And that's a big fucking problem. And when you think about it, you know, the sex ed we have, 99%, or the sex ed we have is basically reproductive biology. And a lot of lefties and progressives, the sex ed programs that you will see them praising, they'll say, oh, there's really good sex ed at this school. And then you look at it, you look at the program, and it's just reproductive biology. It's fallopian tubes and zygotes and spermatozoa. And any idiot can make a baby. Bristol Palin made 2. And Sarah Palin made 5 or 4, depending on who you believe. You can cover reproductive biology in about a minute and a half. The stuff that screws people up, the stuff where people have problems and difficulty are around identity, are around orientation, are around consent, and are around pleasure. Those are the things that trip people up. And pleasure is 99.99% of the time the reason people are having sex. People have sex for pleasure primarily, almost exclusively. People have sex for babies rarely. Even Rick Santorum only has 7 horrible children. Right? And he's an Opus Dei Catholic who thinks you only put a penis in a woman when you want to impregnate her. Practice on altar boys. I'm Catholic, I can go there. They are my people. The sex ed that we have, I always describe it as like a driver's ed course where they teach you about the internal combustion engine and how it works, but they don't teach you about red hexagons or octagons, and they don't teach you about steering or brakes or turn signals or right of way. And then they hand you keys to a car after you've had this class in the internal combustion engine, and you get in that car and you kill someone because you don't fucking know how to drive. And the sex ed that we have is like that. We teach you how the reproductive internal combustion engine works, and we don't teach you how to steer, we don't teach you about consent, we don't teach you about pleasure, we don't teach you how to drive. And then you're handed the keys to your adult sex life, and you kill someone because you don't fucking know how to drive, despite the sex education or driver's education that you've had. But I don't know how we get pleasure into the curricula when it comes to sex education, because the thing that trips people up and really can traumatize people is, how do you talk someone into fucking you? That's really the tricky stuff. That's the scary stuff. How do I talk somebody into fucking me? How do I get consent? How do I give consent? And then how do I give pleasure? And in this country, Canada got the French, Australia got the convicts, we got the Puritans. In this country, I don't think we're ever going to be able to teach pleasure because we don't regard pleasure as a legitimate end to anything, much least of all to sex. So it's a big problem, but it keeps me in business. No matter what you're doing in bed, you want it to be a deliciously comfortable place. And when you're more rested, everything is better. Boll & Branch set out to make your bed more comfortable so you can sleep better by making luxury linens that only cost a fraction of what you'd pay elsewhere. Their sheets are so soft, you have to feel them for yourself. That's the true test. And once you do, you won't want to get out of bed. But you can only get their sheets in one place. That's bollandbranch.com, where you know you're paying for quality, not department store overhead. You're getting $1,000 sheets for just a couple $100. Everyone who tries Boll & Branch sheets loves them. They have thousands of 5-star reviews. The New York Times, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal have all written about them. Go online to Boll, that's B-O-L-L, and branch.com. They'll even let you try their sheets risk-free for 30 nights. If you don't love them, they'll let you send them back. You have nothing to lose. And all of their products come beautifully packaged in their signature boxes. And Lovecast listeners get an even better deal. Go to bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets, plus free shipping. That's bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets, and use the promo code SAVAGE. My husband and I are trying to have a kid, and it's taking longer than we thought it would. How can we keep things exciting when fertility app makes things seem unsexily regimented? You're on your own. I don't know. I've never tried to come in somebody for that reason. I think that's one of those cases where you just acknowledge that this is shitty and not that hot, and there's really no way to make this shitty or hot, so we're just going to power through the fertility app stage of our sexual connection and try to bust that nut. And sometimes it's a relief to say to someone, the sex does not have to be good right now. That we can just get it hard, get it off, that there's a utilitarian thing going on here right now that isn't about giving pleasure. It's not about mind-blowing sex. It's not about anything. It's just about put your cum near my ovaries. And it doesn't have to be great. And that's the kind of sex that you will be having also after you have a baby. Not the get me pregnant sex, but the let's get off, let's not lose our sexual connection. We don't have the time or the energy or the focus or the consciousness, the awake that we need to really like fuck like we did before we had kids. So let's just like not lose the thread. Let's just every once in a while masturbate together, milk each other, just like do the job, tag that base. That's the kind of sex you're going to have after you have a baby, so you might as well get used to it now. Other advice for new parents. Advice from my mother, Judy. She came to Seattle after Terry and I had a baby, and Terry instantly got his pre-baby body back, which I really appreciated. Yeah, I know, right? And my mother came to town, and we were like new parents, this brand new infant. We didn't think we could be away from him. And she took the baby from us and pushed us out the door and said, take advantage. And that was her advice to new parents. Take advantage. Go to dinner. Go see a movie. And Mom's POV and her advice to us was basically the only time you remember why you liked each other well enough to want to have a kid together in the first place is when you're away from your fucking kid. Together. And it was really important for us to take that time. And when we entered Parentlandia, we met so many people in the first few years, first 5-6 years. We would meet other parents who would brag about the fact that they hadn't been to dinner since the baby or babies came. They hadn't been to a movie. They hadn't been to a play. They certainly hadn't had a weekend away together because they were just such devoted, loving, caring parents. So that's who they were now. They were parents now. And everything they were doing before they became parents, like having fun or having a drink or having dinner or an adult conversation or 10 fucking minutes without being covered in vomit, that was so meaningless because now they're doing what's really important. All those motherfuckers who bragged about that shit got divorced. And if you really love your kid, once he comes at the exact right moment and you get pregnant and you have that kid, if you really love your kid or kids, get the fuck away from your kids every once in a while and have a date, have dinner, go away for a weekend, fuck each other. That's a loving thing you do for your kid. You get the fuck away from your kid. Sometimes that's the most loving thing you can do for your kid. And then one day your kid will repay that favor to you. Anal sex, either topping or bottoming, isn't that pleasurable for me. How do I learn to enjoy bottoming more? And how do I learn to keep an erection longer so I can top my husband who loves to get fucked? I think we're meeting the second half of the guy from earlier. You know, if it's not for you and you've given it the old college try, you may have to accept that this isn't something that you're ever really going to enjoy that much or be very good at, and find other workarounds. That said, there's a lot of people, I don't know how old you are or how long you've been at this butt fuckery thing, but a lot of people come to butt sex with shame. A lot of gay men particularly come to butt sex with shame. And it's dirty and filthy and there's poo and there isn't really. That's why Santorum is the frothy mix of lube and fecal matter that is sometimes the byproduct of anal sex. Because if you're doing anal sex right, there is no Santorum. It's only a sometimes thing. That's why Santorum is such a great redefinition, because when Santorum shows up, it kind of ruins the anal sex. And that's Santorum uppercase or lowercase. If Rick Santorum walked in, it would kind of ruin it. Or if the dude rolled over and it was Rick Santorum, that would totally ruin it. And if Santorum the substance shows up, it totally ruins it. It's fun talking to people who've never had anal sex, who are a little phobic about it, about butt sex, because they think, they have it in their heads that somebody's rear end is like a chocolate frozen yogurt dispenser in the back of an Arby's in Plano, Texas in August during a brownout, that it's just always kind of drooling. And it's just not true. If you get a lot of fiber and you have regular BMs and you have a good sense of when you're empty, you don't even need to douche, you're good to go. But people have these hang-ups that just inside the sphincter, there's just this horror show of... It looks like Dexter's living room, but shit, after he murdered somebody, right? And it ain't true. So maybe you need to think more about anal. You need to experiment alone with anal. And that's often something I prescribe to people that has worked. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from this over the years. That's really worked for people who had the hang up, couldn't get hard, really couldn't relax, particularly when they were doing it with a partner. And my advice would be to try it alone. Get a butt plug. Butt plugs are the wonder plug. The wonder drug plug. Butt plugs are really the training wheels for anal for a lot of people, particularly like straight guys who are interested in anal play because it doesn't look like a dick. It looks like a lava lamp that disappears in your ass. And you can set it and forget it, and then when you have your orgasm and your sphincters are clenching, the butt plug does not start fucking you. It doesn't turn into John Holmes then, but just a 40-year-old pop culture porn reference. Thank you for getting it. The butt plug, when your sphincters start to squeeze, just very gently begins to press against, I won't even say move, because that freaks some straight guys out, just presses against your prostate in this way that is really amazing. But for somebody who's into anal or wants to experiment with it without the pressure of disappointing a partner, get a butt plug, put it in, watch some porn, jack the fuck off, and begin to associate anal pleasure, anal stimulation, or anal penetration with pleasure, with your own pleasure, with your own orgasm. And that can help bridge the gap between shame and hang-ups and a block when it comes to anal, and the ability to explore anal with a partner, with boners, and fun and joyfully. All that said, sometimes when people say, when I get fucked, I'm not hard, they're comparing themselves to what they see in porn, where usually, invariably, the guy getting fucked is hard. And there are lots of people who enjoy anal, but they don't get hard during anal, that they just sort of relax. And in the relaxing, which makes it possible to have anal, they just kind of let go of their own boners, and they enjoy their partner's pleasure, and then they jack off when it's all over, or whatever else they want to do. And maybe you're one of those guys. So stop looking at your soft dick during anal and think, I'm failing anal. Maybe that's how you do anal, that you do it with and for your partner, and it's not about your orgasm or your boner, so long as you're not bleeding, weeping, or crying, or in pain. Like, relax and enjoy his enjoyment of your gaping maw. Whether you're wearing a suit or sweats, you spend almost 24 hours a day in your underpants. But instead of making a statement like Superman's tights under his everyday clothes, your underwear is probably kind of boring. MeUndies is here to change that. Every pair of MeUndies is made from sustainably sourced modal, a fabric that's twice as soft as cotton. Once you try them on, you'll understand why they're called the world's most comfortable underwear. And if you don't love your first pair of MeUndies, they're free. No questions asked. MeUndies has dozens of styles and limited edition prints to help you make a statement with your underwear, no matter who gets to see them. Shipping is free in the US and Canada, and you can save up to $8 a pair with the MeUndies subscription plan. Get the subscription or a single pair and get 20% off your first order when you go to MeUndies.com/savage. That's MeUndies.com/savage for 20% off your first order. 3 years ago, my partner and I started dating, and I noticed a scar on her upper leg. When is your partner here? No? Good, because I don't want to read the rest of this question if your partner's here. So once again, is your partner here? 3 years ago, that person threw their voice. They're actually sitting way back there. 3 years ago, my partner and I started dating, and I noticed a scar on her upper leg. When I inquired about it, she started to cry. I apologized for bringing it up, and she said she didn't need to talk about it. I apologized for bringing it up, said she didn't need to talk about it if she didn't want to, and filed it away in the back of my mind. 3 years later, on Valentine's Day, we didn't fuck first. I was encouraged enough to bring it back up. She started crying again and said she would tell me tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and it doesn't happen, and she cries again. I love her and want to respect her space, but her inability to talk about it makes me question our relationship. Stop fucking asking her about it. She knows you want to know. She's filed that away too. And at some point she may feel safe telling you about it, but clearly she doesn't feel safe telling you about it right now. And we are, even in relationships, autonomous individuals entitled to some zone of privacy and entitled to keep some things, even some experiences, to ourselves. And it's not necessarily an indictment of the relationship, and it's not necessarily about you or about how good a partner you are or bad a partner you are, or whether it's not a referendum on your lovingness, your fitness, their affection for you, anything. It's just something that they don't want to talk about. And you have to respect that. At a certain point, you have to say clearly to yourself, not to her, clearly, whatever that's about is really dark and traumatizing and hard for her to talk about. I may never know what all that is about. All you need to know is it's painful and it's somewhere she isn't comfortable going. Don't drag her there. knowing that. That said, I don't want to make it sound like your desire to know came from a bad place. I'm sure it came from a very loving place where you want to care for this person and know them wholly. But one of the things you learn when you're in super duper long-term relationships, I'm in the third decade of one myself, is that you never know someone wholly. That person is always going to be a bit of a mystery to you. That you don't meld, you don't merge. And they are autonomous individuals entitled to zones of privacy and entitled to have places and spaces emotionally, sometimes socially, erotically, where you don't get to go. Why do handjobs get a bad rap? Between me and my partner, it's a bonding experience, something we both suffer through to show our dedication and love. Maybe it gets a bad rap because you describe it as something you suffer through. I don't think handjobs should get a bad rap. I think handjobs are sex. It's one of the things I'm constantly telling straight people. Raise your hand if you're straight. Oh my gosh, welcome. We want the music box to be a safe space for you too. There's like a foot-wide gap behind the stage and I'm going to fall to my death at a certain point. I'm just going to this is a little rundown I do when I do live shows in colleges usually for young straight people. What straight people should take from gay people. Besides brunch, reservations, sit-ups. I'm not a fashion fag, so I can't go there and joke about how you should take our fashion tips because I'm a bum. But there's a few things that straight people should steal from gay people. There are things you've already stolen. You've just renamed them. So much of the way straight young people, particularly young people, young adults live now, are things, elements of gay culture that religious conservatives condemned 30 years ago. You just took them and gave them new names. We had tricks, you have hookups, we had fuck buddies, you call them friends with benefits. And you stole those things. There's one more thing that straight people have to steal, and I call it the 4 magic words. What are you into? That question. And that question, when 2 guys are going to fuck, is always asked. When you get to consent, and it's a man and a woman, all too often, consent is granted, hopefully verbally, and then all communication ceases because what's happening next is assumed. It's heterosexual sex. It's penis and vagina. That's where it's headed. Maybe there'll be a little oral and rolling around, but dick and pussy, that's where we're going because that's what heterosexual sex is. And we don't have that default assumption in fagland. 2 guys say yes to sex, and it's the beginning of a whole other conversation. Because who's fucking who or whether anybody's getting fucked at all has to be discussed. It has to be negotiated. And so gay sex, and I learned this at a very early age, here in Chicago, not very far from this building, gay sex, well, actually, somewhat far, Argyle L Stop, near the Argyle L Stop. Gay sex begins with, what are you into? And it's so empowering because at that moment you can rule anything in and anything out. And it sometimes shocks straight people to hear that, to learn that often what a gay guy hears when he asks, what are you into, from the other dude is not into anal. Maybe not at all. 25, 30% of gay men don't have anal sex ever or at all or hardly ever. And a lot of gay guys don't want to have anal sex on the first date because they're good girls. And so they'll say, not into anal, not so much into fucking. And then it becomes a negotiation around, it's a sexy negotiation around hand jobs or rolling around or fantasy play or oral sex, all these other things you can do. And hand jobs in that context, mutual masturbation, isn't some sad and tragic consolation prize. It's sex. And straight people will often say to me, I wish I could have more sex. And I look at them and say, you could if you had a broader definition of sex. Because I've had straight friends say to me, I've asked them, you'd get laid last night? I saw you with that girl in the bar. And they're like, no, I didn't get laid. Just got a blowjob. As if a blowjob isn't sex, as if that's not getting laid. It's that sad and tragic consolation prize. And you would have more sex if you define more things as sex. And straight guys, and maybe I'm patronizing you. You guys are here. So maybe you guys already know that. Maybe you already listen to the podcast. Straight guys will often confide in me that they're jealous because it's so much easier to get a guy into bed. So me as a gay guy, I can get laid a lot easier than they can, because talking women into, particularly women you've just met, into sex is a lot more difficult. And there are a lot of reasons for that, starting with violence and sexual assault and rape, right? That the risks and dangers for women are so much more extreme. But there's a whole other reason. And I say this to straight guys all the time, and I love saying it at large public universities when I get paid by the state to say it. If straight boys, if every time you said yes to sex, you got fucked in the ass, you would say yes less often. Because to be the penetrated one, to have the shit fucked out of you, literally, unfortunately at times, is a higher sort of entry cost. The price of admission for that is greater for you. And dudes, you fuck somebody and then you roll over and the prolactin is released into your body and it puts you to sleep and you just roll over with your now stanky dick and drop off. Hopefully after making sure she came to or he came to, but the person you just fucked lays there with tingle hole, awake, has to go to the bathroom once or twice, feels like the bladder's full, has got to go get rid of your spermies, right? If you are, bonded in that way and you are fluid bonded and you've tested and everything else. And you're asleep, but, there's an extra hour and a half for the person who got fucked often that gets bundled up with saying yes to getting fucked. So if it's 11:30 and you both have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning and you want to fuck, she has to, budget that extra hour for tingle hole that you don't have to budget. So if every time she says yes, she gets fucked, she's going to say yes less often. If you can say, what are you into tonight, if it's a regular partner, and she can say, I'm not into vaginal. Imagine straight guys' heads would explode, right? This woman has already agreed to have sex with you, and then you have a what are you into conversation, and she says, a gay dude might say not into anal, she says, I'm not into vaginal. The straight dude would be like, what? But that would be better for you straight guys in the end. You would get more hand jobs. You would get more oral sex. You would get to eat more pussy, right? You would get yes more often from the women you're trying to get into bed if you treated them like fags. 32-year-old female in a committed poly relationship with 2 young children. How should I handle being honest about my family in the workplace? Poly folks, particularly poly straight folks with children, are in the place that I think a lot of gay couples and gay people used to be in 30, 40 years ago. There's a lot of stigma, judgment, shame, discrimination against firing someone because they're poly is legal. Welcome to your civil rights battle. Good luck with it. And I'm on your side right there with you. What you say in the workplace has to be balanced against how risky you think it would be for you, economically, professionally, to be out about being poly. I think you should be able to be out about being poly, but not everyone is in a situation or circumstance where they can, shoulder the risks of being out about being poly. What is her name? The lesbian senator from Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, gave this great speech about 15 years ago, I think when she was a member of Congress, talking, bucking up the troops. And we were really taking some body blows 10, 15 years ago in the LGBT civil rights movement, as we are again now. And she was, in this wonderful speech she gave, she said, if you want to live in a world where you can put your partner's picture on your desk at work, put your partner's picture on your desk at work, and then you live in that world, right? And it's sort of importuning people to push past their inhibitions, to push their boundaries, to take risks. And maybe you're in that place now, where you can live in a world where you can be out about being poly if you out yourself about being poly, because then you live in that world. But you have to assess the risk for yourself professionally, for your family, your children, economically, before you take that step. But more and more people are out now about being poly. More and more straight people are out now about being open or monogamish. And that is going to change things for you. And you can benefit from the change that other people are forging for you. Other people can be the tip of the spear and you can come in behind them and then come out when it's a little safer, or you can be the tip of the spear yourself. It's just a choice that you have to make. I met my boyfriend at a sex swinger party and found out later, to my surprise, that he is very monogamous and has some trust issues. How can I convince him I'm serious, won't cheat on him, but also that monogamy and commitment aren't always positively correlated? I think you should break up with him now. Where can I find sex-positive porn online? I wish you had left online off the question, because the answer would be online. It's basically where all the porn is. Some of it not so sex-positive, but a lot of it sex-positive. I would urge you to read and follow Tristan Taormino, to follow feminist porn blogs. There's a feminist porn, basically Twitter community that ropes in a lot of feminist porn actors, performers, producers, Jiz Lee, other people, Violet Blue. Plug yourself into that online world, and you will find your way to all sorts of ethically produced, locally sourced, small batch, sex-positive pornography that you can feel good about watching, that you can feel good about consuming, because you're creating more demand for more porn created in these ethical ways. And you can support the careers and livelihoods of these people who are creating this kind of porn. So it's not hard to find. You just have to be so motivated, and you just have to get online. All right, we hope you enjoyed that selection from our recent live show in Chicago. We certainly enjoyed talking with Savage Lovecast fans at the Music Box Theater. And now, as usual, here are some of your responses to last week's show.
Hi, Dan. Regarding episode 513, for the guy whose coworkers are racist, homophobic, sexist douchebags, I have one thing to say. Document everything. I work in equal employment opportunity and civil rights, and the most important thing I can urge you to do is to make a record of what happens when and who says what. Not so much for the asshole coworkers, but for when you go to management. The EEOC is also going to need it, so start writing everything down now. I myself ran into the situation where a coworker was sexually harassing me and others, and though I went to HR about it multiple times, nothing got done. Finally, I wrote everything down that I could remember, things he'd done and said, when I'd reported them to HR, and anything else relevant. I made an appointment to see our company's CEO, and I plopped that document down on his desk. That afternoon, the harasser was fired, and an outside investigator was called in. Oh, and my employer also sent me a gift basket thanking me for reporting what had happened.
This is a response from episode 513 to the woman dealing with the dom who wants to out her. When you're dealing with someone who's that big of an asshole, you don't fucking out people on FetLife, ever, for any reason. People like that should be avoided at all costs, so just do not report him. Just go ahead and block him. There's a button in the upper right corner. Use that, and anyone else who wants to bully you online, go ahead and create new profiles on FetLife and also on your campsite. Just create a fresh new start. Also, go to Munches with the expectations to make friends, not play partners. So that way you could actually have a support system that'll listen to you and support you through these troubling times. Sorry that you're going through this. Hope it gets better, and have a good one.
Hi, I'm calling to leave a comment about episode 513 about the woman who was considering not inviting Trump supporters to her wedding. I got to say, about 12 years ago when I got married, my parents at that point had not had a lot of contact with actual gay men or gay women. We had a couple gay couples at our wedding, and that was the biggest exposure that they've ever had to on a one-on-one level to people who are out. And it was a transformative moment for them. I could tell at the time that it was a big deal that they actually spoke to them on a human level, and it changed. It was a little pebble that helped change the way they think about things. And many years later, they told me that that was indeed the case. It was a transformative moment. Flash forward to today, they are still pretty right-wing Republican Fox News watchers, but they told me there's no way in hell that they're going to vote for Donald Trump, and they're going to be voting for Hillary Clinton.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a comment or a question for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. Follow Heather Havrilesky on Twitter at @Havrilesky. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. And speaking of Twitter, Amir tweets, Yours is the only podcast I pay for, and it's well worth it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amir, for subscribing to the Magnum Edition. I thanked Amir on Twitter, and Eileen Thornton tweeted, "I've never heard of a podcast that charges." We don't charge. We have two podcasts. One is totally free, the Savage Love Micro Edition. We did for years a 45, 50-minute Savage Lovecast. We heard from people. They wanted a longer show. They wanted a show without ads. They wanted a show with more guests. And then we decided to do a longer ad-free show for subscribers. And that is the Magnum Edition that people can subscribe to. For information about subscribing to the Magnum or Savage Lovecast, go to savagelovecast.com. But the Micro Edition, as long as it ever was, is and always has been and still is free. And you can find the Micro on iTunes and anywhere finer podcasts are served up. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian, who held down the fort while I was away on vacation. Thank you, Nancy. Now, me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth, we're going to get out of the studio and go out and enjoy the last of the summer days. But we will be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for downloading.